Welcome back, everyone, to Leadership with Purpose. Today we are going super deep on this book that, like, everybody in leadership is talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Extreme Ownership.
It's a good one.
It is. It's by Jocko, Willink, and Leif Babin, and it's how U.S. Navy SEALs lead and win. So, obviously, this is a military book.
Right.
But, we've talked about it before. Like, you can really apply these principles anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why it's resonated with so many people. It's not just about combat or, even business. It's about, like, taking ownership in your personal life and, and how you approach challenges.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like a whole way of looking at your life.
Yeah.
But we want to make this deep dive really accessible.
Of course.
So you don't need like a military background to get a lot out of it.
Right.
And we know you're busy. So we're going to try to, cut to the chase.
Right to the good stuff.
And give you the most important takeaways.
Actionable insights.
Yeah, exactly.
The stuff you can use right away.
So let's just jump right in.
Yeah, let's do it.
What is this whole extreme ownership thing actually about? I feel like a lot of people kind of misinterpret it.
Yeah, I think people hear extreme ownership and they just think, okay, blame yourself for everything.
Right.
Like, just be harder on yourself. And it's so much more nuanced than that.
Okay.
I mean, yes, it's about taking responsibility, but it's also about control. It's like saying, okay, this happened. Now what can I do to make it better?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not about dwelling on the problem.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
about like, okay, what's the solution?
Exactly.
What's next?
Right. It's about taking action. And I think the best way to understand it is to look at how Willink and Babin actually used it in their own lives, as SEALs.
Right. Because they weren't just writing this book as like some theory they came up with.
No, this was like forged in the fire of,
Yeah, like actual combat experience.
Absolutely. And I think one of the most powerful stories in the book is about this friendly fire incident in Ramadi. It really brings this whole extreme ownership concept to life.
Yeah. And that's a situation where it would be so easy to just point fingers.
Right.
Like blame the guy who pulled the trigger or blame, whoever gave the wrong intel.
Right. It's chaotic. It's high stress. People are making mistakes. Right. But Willink, he was the leader on the ground and he took full responsibility.
Wow.
Yeah, even though he wasn't the one who actually fired the shot.
So what did that look like? What did he actually do?
Well, first of all, he didn't just say, oh, yeah, my bad. He owned it in front of his team. He owned it in front of his superiors, and then he took action. He did a full after-action review, figured out exactly what went wrong, looked at communication breakdowns, like how they could improve their processes, their training. He didn't just accept blame. He used it as a way to learn and to get better.
That's so powerful, and it's such a different way of thinking than what most people do when things go wrong.
Right, because most people are just trying to protect themselves.
Right.
Cover their butts. But Willink, he saw it as an opportunity to improve the entire team, the entire system.
So I guess the question for our listener is, how can you apply that in your own life? But think about it. The next time something goes wrong at work, or even, in your personal life, before you start blaming other people, before you start making excuses, ask yourself, what could I have done differently? What's my part in this?
What can I learn from this?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that leads to another really important principle from the book, which is there are no bad teams, only bad leaders.
That's a bold statement.
It is, but they back it up with a really interesting story from SEAL training.
Yeah, the boat cruise.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Okay, so during SEAL training, they had these two boat crews that were competing against each other. And one crew was consistently winning, like crushing it. And the other crew was just like struggling, like they couldn't get anything right. So the instructors, they decided to do an experiment. They swapped the leaders of the two crews.
Oh, wow.
And the results were insane. The crew that had been losing with the new leader, they started winning.
Really?
Yeah, and the crew that had been winning with the less effective leader, they started losing.
And it just proves, like, the leader sets the tone, the leader creates the culture.
So think about that, our listener. Have you ever been on a team where the dynamics totally changed when a new leader came in?
Right.
Like, it could be a good change or a bad change, but the leader really does have that much influence.
They really do. And it's not just about, like, giving orders or barking at people.
Right.
It's about inspiring them, motivating them, believing in them. And that brings us to another key principle. Believe in the mission. Okay, so why is it so important for a leader to actually believe in what they're doing?
Because people can smell BS a mile away.
Right.
If you don't believe in what you're selling, no one else will. It's contagious. Like if you're unsure, if you're hesitant, that's going to spread to your team, and then no one's going to be committed, no one's going to be willing to go the extra mile.
So what if you're in a situation where, like, you're not totally sold on the mission? Like, maybe you have some doubts about it.
Well, Willink and Babin, they say you got to seek clarity. You got to ask questions. You got to understand the strategic objectives, the why behind the mission. And once you understand it, you can communicate it to your team in a way that resonates with them.
And it's got to be authentic, right? Like, you can't just fake it.
No, people will see right through that.
Yeah. And for you listening, think about your own work, your own projects. How does your level of belief in what you're doing affect your own motivation and the motivation of the people around you?
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about taking ownership, believing in the mission, but there's also another big obstacle that leaders have to overcome, which is ego.
Oh, yeah. Ego is a killer.
So how does ego mess things up?
Well, for one thing, it makes you blind to your own weaknesses.
Right.
You think you're always right. You don't listen to feedback. You don't learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, you're not open to new ideas.
Exactly. And you become more focused on protecting your own image, getting credit, than on actually achieving the mission.
Have you ever seen that happen? Like, where a leader's ego actually sabotaged the whole team?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've seen leaders who were so afraid of looking bad that they would refuse to delegate.
Oh, yeah.
They'd micromanage everything, and it would just slow everything down and create this, like, toxic environment.
Because nobody feels trusted.
Exactly. And Willink and Babin, they're big on humility.
Yeah.
They say, like, check your ego at the door. The mission comes first. The team comes first.
So how do you actually do that? Like, how do you check your ego?
Well, it starts with being self-aware, like recognizing when your ego is getting in the way.
Okay.
And then it's about being willing to listen to other people, even if you don't agree with them.
Yeah, be open to feedback.
Yeah. And being willing to admit when you're wrong. That's huge.
It is, but it's not easy.
No, it's not. But it's essential for good leadership.
So I want to talk about another principle that I think is so important, which is cover and move. And this one comes directly from their experience as SEALs.
Basic combat tactic.
So explain what it means, like, on the battlefield.
Okay, so imagine you have two fire teams.
Okay.
One fire team lays down suppressive fire to keep the enemy pinned down, while the other fire team advances to a better position. And then they switch roles. One covers, the other moves. And they keep doing that until they achieve their objective.
And they're always watching out for each other.
Always. It's all about teamwork, mutual support.
So how does that translate to, like, the business world or just life in general?
Well, it's about understanding that everyone has a role to play and everyone needs support.
Okay.
Like in a company, you might have the sales team out there on the front lines trying to close deals.
Okay.
But they can't do that effectively if they don't have support from the marketing team, the product development team, the customer service team.
Right, right. So it's all connected.
Exactly. Everyone needs to be covering for each other, supporting each other, so that the team as a whole can move forward.
I love that. And for you listening, think about your own team, your own organization. Are there ways that you can be better at covering and moving? Are there people who need your support? Are there people you can reach out to for support?
It's about fostering that culture of collaboration and making sure that everyone feels valued and supported.
Absolutely. And that leads to another really important principle, which is simple plans work best.
Oh, yeah, especially in high-pressure situations.
So why is simplicity so important?
Well, think about it. If you're in a combat situation or even just a really stressful work environment, the last thing you need is a complicated, convoluted plan.
Right.
You need something clear, concise, easy to understand, easy to execute.
So what's the danger of having a plan that's too complex?
It can just lead to confusion, hesitation, and ultimately failure.
Right. People might not understand their role.
Exactly. They might not know what to do, when to do it, and when the pressure's on, that could be disastrous.
So how do you create a simple plan?
Well, it starts with identifying the most important objective.
Mhm.
What's the one thing that absolutely has to be accomplished?
Okay.
And then you work backward from there, figuring out the essential steps that need to be taken to achieve that objective.
And keeping it as simple as possible.
As simple as possible.
Mm.
Because the simpler the plan, the easier it is to communicate, the easier it is to execute, and the more likely you are to succeed.
So once you have your simple plan, how do you actually put it into action?
Well, that's where the prioritize and execute principle comes in.
Okay, tell us about that.
So let's say you have a bunch of tasks that need to be done. Instead of trying to do everything at once, which can be overwhelming, you prioritize.
Mm-hmm.
You figure out what's the most important task, the one that will have the biggest impact.
Okay.
And then you focus all your energy on that task until it's done. And then you move on to the next most important task.
It's like a laser focus.
Exactly. It's about eliminating distractions and getting things done. And for you listening, think about how you can apply this in your own work. What are the most important tasks that you need to accomplish? And how can you break those tasks down into smaller, more manageable steps?
It's about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about planning and execution, but another key aspect of leadership is delegation.
Right.
And that's where the decentralized command principle comes in.
Okay, so what does that mean?
Well, it's about empowering your team to make decisions. Instead of trying to control everything from the top down, you give your team the authority and responsibility to make decisions within their areas of expertise.
So it's not about micromanaging.
No, not at all. It's about trusting your team, giving them the freedom to operate, and letting them take ownership.
And what are the benefits of that?
Well, for one thing, it frees up your time to focus on the bigger picture.
Okay.
You don't have to be involved in every little detail.
Right.
And it also makes the team more agile and responsive. They can make decisions faster without having to wait for approval from up the chain.
So it's about empowering people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it creates a more engaged and motivated team.
So for our listener, think about your own leadership style. Are you a micromanager? Or do you trust your team to make decisions? Are there areas where you can delegate more effectively?
It's about finding that balance between control and empowerment.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but there's one more principle I want to talk about, which is discipline equals freedom.
That one always gets people thinking.
It does, because it seems kind of counterintuitive, right?
It does, because we usually think of discipline as being restrictive.
Right.
Like it's all about rules and limitations.
But Willink and Babin are saying the opposite.
Exactly. They're saying that discipline actually creates freedom.
So how does that work?
Well, think about it. If you're disciplined in your daily routines, your workouts, your diet, you're actually freeing yourself from a lot of the things that hold people back. Procrastination, laziness, bad habits.
Right.
You're creating the space for yourself to achieve your goals, to be more productive, to be healthier, to be happier.
So it's like discipline is the foundation.
Exactly. It's the foundation that allows you to build the life you want.
And for you listening, think about an area of your life where you could be more disciplined. Maybe it's your finances, maybe it's your time management, maybe it's your fitness, and ask yourself, how could more discipline in this area actually give me more freedom?
It's about investing in yourself, creating the structure and the habits that will set you free.
And before we wrap up, I just want to emphasize that while extreme ownership comes from a military context, these principles are so relevant to all areas of life.
Oh yeah, I've seen it applied in business, in education, in sports, in personal relationships.
So don't think that just because you're not a SEAL, this doesn't apply to you.
Not at all. These are universal principles of leadership and success.
The core message of extreme ownership is so powerful. It's about taking responsibility, being proactive, leading with humility, and empowering your team. To sum it all up, the key takeaways from extreme ownership are: take ownership of everything in your world, believe in your mission, check your ego, cover and move, keep it simple, prioritize and execute, decentralize command, and remember that discipline equals freedom.
And for a final thought, our listener, choose one of these principles that really resonated with you and think about how you can apply it in your own life. How can you take extreme ownership of your own success?
That's a great challenge. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, please take a moment to like this episode and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out and it allows us to keep bringing you more great content on leadership and personal development.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for joining us.